Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chouinard. I am here with Glenn Willis and Brad Rowland one day before the NBA draft. But before we do draft stuff, lots of other Hawks things happening here. Glenn, what do you make of the acquisition of Aaron Wiggins?
I think it's a good acquisition. I know people have been saying like his defensive stats were not. He was hurt for a lot of it. He was injured at the beginning of part of the year. It's one of the reasons he kind of fell out of the rotation is he was kind of coming back from injury. And then they required the kid from Philadelphia who's was awesome in the playoffs. Became he has good length. He has good size. He's a good enough shooter. What I love about it is he's going to bring that kind of DNA from Oklahoma City, a very physical defense. He has a lot of length. He's a guy who I think it's going to be easier to keep him. I think teams are going to not want to get him switched on the ball handlers, but having a bigger wing like him with length, I think it's a great addition. And the fact that it only costs two future second round picks makes it a real value deal. So I think it's a great trade. I imagine he's not a starter, but plays a ton and closes out defensively when they need to close out defensively. So he brings a lot on that end. And I think he only shot at like 35% from three last year, but prior to that, it was 38, 39, a couple seasons in that range. And so he's just a smart player, resourceful player. He knows how to cut, he knows how to move, he knows how to do, all the stuff that Quinn wants on offense. So all the split cuts and the cuts and backside plays, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a fantastic addition.
Brad, I would ask the same of you, and I'm going to add one little appendix for Brad. Does this tell us anything about Zachary Rizashay?
That makes it interesting. No, I largely agree with Glenn. I saw some of the feedback that Glenn got about Wiggins' defense, and I was going to poke fun at Glenn about calling him elite defensively. I don't think I would say that, but I think he can play defense. I'm not worried about his defense, which is helpful. And in general, two-way wing players that make 5% of the salary cap, like it's a pretty easy pitch to me. Like I know I of course got the usual like, oh, you're such a nerd for the way I described Wiggins on my show last night, and it's like I don't think he's a star player. I think he's a very useful like seventh, eighth man on a good team, and he's so cheap in the modern NBA and doesn't take anything off the table to where it's like pretty obvious to see why the Hawks were intrigued by him. Also, the only reason why he was available for that price is that the Thunder had this massive tax bill. Like it's not. I understand that I don't expect Hawks fans to know what's going on with other teams all the time, but the only reason that was available to the Hawks, and Onsi used the term today. I know Kevin heard it because he was there, but Onsi used the term about himself that we use about him all the time is that he's opportunistic, and he's kind of shown that over the last year. This is a prime example of that. The Hawks were like, hey, this is a not distressed asset, but like a not bargain basement, but like a very, very good cost for a player that can fit anywhere. And if you need to move off of him later on, you can really easily because he makes very little money in the grand scheme. Um, on the Ricochet front, I saw a lot of people making that leap, and I totally understand why because they play the same position. I get it. I don't necessarily think it matters directly in the way that some were framing it as like, oh, trouble for Ricochet. Like I don't view it that way. Now it could be insurance for Ricochet. That's very possible. It could be that Ansi already knows or suspects that they might trade Zach in the next week or two, and this is a good way to kind of backstop that and not have a huge hole. But also, I think it might be insurance for Jonathan Kuminga. It might be insurance for Corey Kispert. Like I've already been thinking all three of those guys would not be on the team next year. I'm even stronger on that now than I was because I doubt that all four of them, if you throw Wiggins in there, are all going to be on the team next year just for like salary reasons and roster reasons. I just don't know which one of them or maybe two of them are not going to be on the team. I don't think it necessarily means that Zach in particular is going to be leaving town.
Yeah, I like the Wiggins acquisition. I mean, it certainly feels like he's to me like he's creeping on Zach's minutes, Zach's territory a little bit. But he's just Wiggins is another player who's just a sound decision maker. Like
Mhm.
he's a piece. He knows entirely how to play within a system. Like he does not stop the ball in any way whatsoever. So he's just, part of their offense. He will make your 0.5 second decisions to pass, dribble, shoot. Like he plays completely within the offense, and I think he's a really good passer. Like, once he knows that offense, he knows where the read's going to be, and he puts the ball in the right place. On defense, it's almost like hard to judge him because of the way that they use him.
Yep.
Because they're going to put Lou Dort on the ball, they're going to put Alex Caruso on the ball, they're going to put Cason Wallace on the ball. So his role a lot of the time on defense is, guard. We're going to play small ball. You're going to guard a power forward that's getting stashed in the corner, and so his job is to just kind of be a non-trivial help at the rim and then recover to his corner shooter. It's kind of a basic role, but he's a decent enough athlete. He's not tiny at 6'5", and so he can kind of get that done pretty well. And when you're just a good decision maker, like you can manage in that role. Like it's not like he's elite defensively, but he's a hold up guy. He hold up. He's not really a guy that you're going to pick on.
I actually checked at the combine data. He had a 6'10" wingspan at the combine coming out.
Yep.
So I know the height, like if you just see the height, you might think he's like a shooting guard, that maybe trends that way. But
Yeah.
he played the majority of his minutes at the three the last 2 years in Oklahoma
Yeah.
City.
Yeah.
And that is a way I totally agree with both of you. Like it's hard to evaluate him defensively in that scheme because oftentimes like he might have been the worst defender on the court for them, but that's not because of him. It's because of like the craziness around him. You're playing with Dort and Chet and all these guys, and but I think he's definitely someone I would worry about, and I think it's again like a guy who shoots 38% from three on real volume, who can defend and doesn't take anything off the table. Like I'm
Yeah.
a sucker for that archetype.
Yeah. It is gonna be interesting to see him in a little bit slightly different defensive context, depending
Yep.
upon what the Hawks do in free agency. Are they going to get a rim protector, or are they not going to get a rim protector? Everybody's dying to know that, right? But it'll be interesting if they continue to switch, play switchable lineups. Does he get switched onto the ball? Can he handle that? It's not something to Kevin's point. They had higher level defenders on that OKC team that could do that stuff where he didn't have to do that. But it'll be interesting to see like how he handles that kind of context where you're switching a lot. And I'm anxious to see, I'm interested to see how he adjusts to a little bit of a different kind of defensive philosophy that the Hawks have. I know everybody's dying to know what's going to happen draft night tomorrow night. How do the first 7 picks go? Who's on the board when the Hawks are picking? And then there's a bunch of rumors about Trey Murphy too. Hard to know how real those are or not. We can talk about that if you want to. But it's just interesting. There's a lot of moving parts and moving pieces. Jake Fisher on Bleacher Report today kind of threw a little bit of cold water on the Hawks and Trey Murphy. But I'm still hearing noise, back channels kind of around that as well from multiple kind of different people who may or may not know what's actually going on.
With CJ agreeing to a 1 year deal, I'm just kind of curious, like, do you make anything of the timing where that happened like a day after the Gillespie re-signing with Phoenix? Is there anything to that? Like, do you think they were waiting? Let's see, let's keep, like, maybe we can make an offer. And then as soon as Gillespie happened, McCollum happened. Is there anything? Am I just like a crazy conspiracy theorist, Brad?
I know why you're saying that. It's not crazy, and I thought Gillespie would have made so much sense for the Hawks,
Yep.
and I thought that price was a huge bargain for Phoenix. It's not a Suns podcast, but I think that's a great deal for them. Uh, I don't think so. To your question,
Like they
I
have the
have,
same like umbrella agency too.
yeah, I totally get why you're saying it, and I don't think so only because it's just been getting louder and louder for weeks and weeks that it was like not done, but like everybody you talk to was like McCollum's coming back to Atlanta, like everybody. And he's been, I mean, this doesn't matter, but like he's going to World Cup games with Jalen and those guys. He's going to Dream games, and it's like he's in town. He doesn't live here. Like he hasn't moved his whole operation here. Like those are the small things. Like I don't want to make too much of it, but I think it was going to happen all the way. I think there was
Yeah.
maybe some contractual stuff about like the 1 year versus 2 years versus team options and all that stuff, and maybe that's what kind of held it up a little bit. But I don't think they were waiting on Gillespie. I don't. Maybe the Hawks could have honestly they could have done both, which would have been interesting.
Right.
But they could have done that, and I think that maybe they would have tried it. I would love to know if they actually called on Gillespie at some point because I would have, but I don't know. I don't know if they did, but I do think that it would have been legitimately stunning to me within the last couple of weeks if McCollum wasn't back, based on what I was hearing.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I wasn't when I say like the timing happening a day later, I don't think it was, hey, let's get Gillespie instead of McCollum, but it's more of like let's see what we can do with Gillespie. And, if that works out, we're going to have to shuffle the deck. And we still want to keep CJ McCollum, but we're going to have to reorganize everything everywhere else to make that work. And then as soon as Gillespie was off the board, it's like a very easy, okay, we definitely want CJ. Let's just make that happen.
Hey, did you see the trade that just happened while we're recording?
Oh,
Yes, I
good
did.
Lord,
Not a
what's
Hawks
going
Yeah,
trade.
on?
Not a Hawks trade. Not a Hawks
like
trade.
Sure, I
yeah,
want to know though. What do we got? Oh, I
Minnesota.
don't care about that.
Yeah, no, no. Let's start. Minnesota sending Julius Randle and the 28 pick to Brooklyn in a three-team trade. Nick Claxton goes to Chicago. Timberwolves will acquire Brooklyn's number 33 pick for Randle and number 28. So you got
So basically, the Wolves are dumping Julius Randle, like literally for pretty
yes,
much nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, salary relief.
Interesting. Why would they do that, Brian Windhorst
Salary
fingers?
relief.
Just saying.
Money,
Sorry,
and he's
I,
not that good. Like,
I, s- I saw
let's
Sham's
talk about the Hawks
notification.
draft. Let's not talk about
Sorry,
this. I don't
I'm just
want to
saying it had to
hijack the
happen.
Hawks draft for that.
It had to happen. Sorry, and it just happened. So that's my fault. I shouldn't
No,
even
no,
say
no, no,
anything.
no. I'm glad you brought it up, but now that I see it, yeah, I'm ready to punt that. So,
We'll
Brad, let
move
me
on.
ask you this because I think I asked Tyler and Glenn this same question. When you look at the draft and you look at that number 8 pick, I guess it's kind of the same part of this. Like, okay, whatever's going to happen through picks 1 through 7 happens. When you get to that spot, what do you think the Hawks are going to do? And if you were in that same spot, what would you do?
So the first part of that is not going to be popular, but I I have called everyone I know and people I don't even. No one knows what the Hawks are going to do. No one outside of that building. And that's on purpose. So I won't even pretend to offer that I know because I don't. I'd love to know. Honestly, I would love to know. But even the guys who have great intel, the guys who do this all the time, everybody's like kind of shrugging, like they don't want to tell anybody anything. And as a fan, I'd love that. As a media member, it drives me crazy. I'd love to know what's going on. So I'm not even going to give you a guess, Kevin, like
Oh, I don't
on
I
what
don't
they're
want to
going to
guess
do.
based on intel. I want to guess based on
No,
what the Hawks roster is,
yeah, no, I
what their
get it. I mean,
tendencies are to pick for. Like you know what they have a feel for, what they
yes,
like, what they
I do. I mean,
prize.
I do. I do to have that to some degree. I will also note that we only have one draft pick of Ansi Saleh, and it was a best player available, clearly the best player available pick with Asa that they believed was just the best guy. So like that's something we could see what he's done on the margins. I also think it's really interesting that the Hawks kind of have two positional relative needs, and it's a long-term lead guard and a center tandem with a Kongwu. And that's
Yep.
exactly the players who were available to them at this spot. So it's like they don't even have to talk about, I mean, unless they were just in love with Yaxel Lindeborg or Nate Ament or something, everybody else is a guard that would fit or a center who would fit, and that's really just a Daimara, right? So I think like Keaton Wagler feels very Hawksy to me, like very Hawksy. I just don't know if he's going to be available. I would guess he's probably not available. Um, And then after that, like I think I come back to Fleming's because I think the culture side of things as well. Like everybody loves Kingston Fleming's, everyone, and the Hawks do. Obviously, they care about the court stuff, but they really value the culture stuff, the makeup, the stuff like that. And I think he would be that. But he's also a small guard, and I don't know how Onsi's going to approach small guard. So, and then you have the Quinn Snyder dynamic. Quinn, I think we all know, and Kevin and I laugh about this all the time. Quinn really likes to have a big center and he will make a comment about that every once in a while that he likes to have a big center. And there is one of those who feels the game really well and passes, doesn't shoot it yet, but like for me, it's like one of the guards or Mora all makes sense. The wild card's made Michael Brown because he's like not that Hawksy, but also he's kind of the upside play. So long answer, but man, it's I wish I knew more than I do. I wish I actually had a better feel. But even in the mocks today, like everyone's like, well, the Hawks are in every trade discussion and no one knows what's going on. It's like, great. So I'm not punting, I promise. That's my honest answer. I
And
don't
what
know.
would you do if you were in charge?
I would
Guessing who
take
you think is gone 1 through 7, who's left, and what would you pick?
yeah. I think the combination of realistic and what I would do would be Kings to Flemings. I have Wagler and Fleming's like a half tier above the rest of these guys. I think Wagler's more likely to be gone. So because of that, I'll say Fleming's. If they were both gone, which is possible, I would personally take Mara over the other guards. I would go to Mara over Brown and over Acuff. There is a little bit of a wild card with Braden Burries, I will say.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. Bur Burries both fits the Hawks perfectly and also does not give them what they kind of need. Like I don't think he's a primary, and they kind of need a primary, but also he's extremely Hawksy in every other way. Like he wants to run, he can defend, multi positions. So like I could see them loving Braden Burries. I just don't know if they like want to use that bullet on that player. But I think they probably like him, from what I understand.
Glenn, it's been a while since you've told us about what you think about this particular draft, and a
Yeah.
lot of things have
Yeah.
happened since then. And I've done some podcasts with Tyler, but like, I don't know. Now that we're here, what's your feeling about this draft?
Well, I mean, I think I don't know what the order will be of the first four, but the first four are gonna, they're gonna be. Everybody knows who the first four are gonna be. I just don't know for sure what order they're gonna go. And then, so then it really comes down to what happens five, six, seven. Who gets picked in those 5 through 7 spots, and who's on the board when the Hawks are up at 8 if they maintain that pick and don't trade it or whatever, and those sorts of things. But for me, I know a lot of Hawks fans are excited about Mara, but I would say like you go look at some of the videos of him kind of working out, and I mean he's pretty fluid as an athlete for a guy that's as big as he is. I do question like, are you married to drop coverage when he's on the floor? Is that all you can do, or can he get to the level and get back? I think as I've seen him play, I watched a couple clips on YouTube because Michigan games, and was surprised he's a little bit more nimble than I expected. Now the Hawks like to play really really fast, so it's like that's another question is can he play with that kind of pace in that sense? But he would feel a huge need as a rim protector, right? Absolutely feel a huge need as a rim protector. But to Brad's point, like the big gaping hole offensively on this roster is they have average creators, they have average passers, and they really need someone who'd come in and like really grow into a primary creator role. If Flemings is on the board at 8, that might be the way that they go. We'll see, But at the same time, I know I mean I see people Hawks fans on Twitter every single day hoping for Mara, right? And I understand it, right? I understand it. But at the same time, I mean, I think he would spend the first like couple months playing a good bit in College Park, and then but I think by the time you get to the middle of the season, he's playing regular minutes. I mean that's just me guessing,
Yeah.
in that role. Um, but I mean he'd help them. He'd give them a differentiator at the position for sure with the size and the length and the rim protection. It's something they don't have now. Then and if they bring Jock back, then you've got you maybe start the season with a Congo and Jock kind of playing most of the minutes at center, and then you at some point December or whenever you decide to kind of start bringing Mara into the rotation at that point as well if you feel like he's kind of ready for that. So if they take him as a developmental center, I'm totally fine with that. I have no problem with that at all. If Flemings is there, it'd be interesting to see if they decide that they want to add a guard to this group. But I think the interesting thing there is like, would Fleming start as a rookie? Probably not. Yeah, I don't know,
No.
but I mean, he's a smaller guard to Brad's point, but he's a good athlete. Like he's a good, even
Yeah.
though he's smaller, he's a really good athlete. So for me, I feel like the first four are going to go in whatever order, and then 5, 6, 7 is a crapshoot in terms of who those teams take. And so just it'll be interesting to see tomorrow night how all that unfolds.
I think Acup's going to go. Would be my one prediction is that Acup is not available to the Hawks, which I'm fine with. I wouldn't want him anyway. Not that he's a good prospect. He wouldn't be the guy I'd want. I think he's the guy that I think is the safest to be gone. There's so much Kings noise. There's so much stuff about him and being gone. I have a question for Kevin on his own podcast.
Okay.
Did you, Kevin? So you and I were both at Aussie today. Aussie got a kind of an interestingly vague question about center defense, and he kind of answered it in an interesting way, and that he kind of mentioned that there's almost two schools of thought with like, hey, you want to have a rim protector, but also there's something to be said for having like basically everybody play the same way or whatever. I can't remember. That's not a direct quote, but it was basically like this conversation about Mara is like, hey, he didn't say Mara's name at all, but it was in my mind. I'm like, all right, well, that's the Mara decision. It's like, do you want to have, you already have a Kongwu who isn't going to be a drop big. and is not a rim protector at that position, do you want to have to basically play a different way, no matter who your center is with those two centers? I'm not saying you don't want to do that, but that's a really like organizational question you have to answer. Or do you want to have another center who's like more like a Kongwu and that can like be more mobile? Not that Jock Lando's some great athlete, but he's not a pure drop big either. Like Jock can show and do some stuff, and that's
But
an interesting organizational decision they have to make, and it kind of stems through Mara because if they're willing to go with a split kind of dual personality defensively, Mara makes more sense. If they're more married to mobility at center, and also he mentioned spacing at center too, which Mara
yep.
currently can't do. Maybe he will be able to. I know there's video of him shooting, but he currently can't shoot. Maybe he will be, but like those priorities are like kind of tell you organizationally what they might think about center.
Yeah, that was the thing I keyed on too. He said, "Can he space?" Like that. I remember that verbatim from his comment, and so it's interesting to think like, do they think they can develop him as a shooter? Right? Do they? How many? How, would that take 2 years? Like, what's the timeline to get him to be able to kind of do that? And so those are really interesting things to kind of think about. So I'm look. I mean, I'm eager to see what their decision is at 8 tomorrow night. And again, part of that. I mean, there's rumors of like Dallas trying to move up. There's other teams trying to move up. OKC might package and try to move up. We'll see what happens there. But I think it's going to be pretty
They want to.
eventful. Yeah,
OKC wants to move up. I don't know if they will, but then, but Kevin, did,
yeah,
did you clock that the way that I did? I just thought it was interesting,
Yeah, I think
like
it's
the way that you
interesting.
framed it.
It's funny that the thing I think you mentioned right before that was a cuff. Like, I think that's kind of a tell that they wouldn't go for somebody like that because you don't have the defensive mistake eraser that you would probably want to have to play with somebody like Acuff.
Yeah,
You don't have him covered on the
Acuff's the
back line,
Trey. Acuff is defensively the closest thing to Trey Young that you can find.
and you're just going right back to it, and you're not set up for that. It, but to the same point, Glenn was talking about it a minute ago. I don't think that the Hawks would have any real issue playing two different styles. But I do think one thing that they would have trouble with is if your plan is okay, let's get Mara, let's get Landale. It's going to be I think it's going to be harder to integrate Mara mid-season because he's going to be so different than Landale.
Yeah,
Like to take Landale out and put him in, you're changing the offense because you're going to lose the spacing.
yep.
You're changing yourself in a way where all of a sudden you're going to have to play a lot more drop. Like I think integrating Mara mid-season after he goes to the G League for 2 months to come in and take Landale's spot would be very, very difficult. Like I think there would be some situational things where it's like, okay, now it's the end of a quarter and we will just want to get this one stop where you might be able to integrate him and do stuff. But to just kind of do that with any continuity, you're going to play one very different way with Landale than you would with a Daimara. It's just going to be, I think that would be a very difficult integration mid-season. I feel like you'd almost have to, if you got a viable second string big to start the season, I feel like you'd almost have to ride that for a while than try to make a mid-season switch because it would just be a big contrast in style. I don't think that a Kongwu versus someone else is such a big contrast, but I think your second and third string, I think you want to match there because all the players that are going to usually play with them in the same spots in the rotation, you want them to get used to the same way of playing.
well, and it's also
And
like,
but
go ahead, Glenn.
no, I'll say, but also if you go look at the free agent centers, there are some good veteran centers that are
Oh
free
yeah,
agents. Like Robert Williams is a free agent, and
absolutely.
and he's been hurt a lot. But you could load manage between Jock and Robert. They could just take turns playing games or back to
Yeah,
backs or whatever that is. And so it just depends on like how much money, how much it would cost to kind of get him to, and that would be a great three. The center depth would be great up 1-3-3
you,
there. So
yep.
they're like, no, we're just going to go get a free agent, veteran free agent on a mid level or whatever it is.
Yeah,
That
and
might be what they do.
I think that's the way it's going to go. Like my gut about this draft is this is their one chance to kind of go get that lead guard. I don't think they
Yeah,
want to solve the center problem here. I think they want to
they'd have to
get
be in
that
love with
lead
Mara.
guard while they've got the chance, and then they
Yeah,
can free agency something else. Maybe yeah. Sorry,
I,
that was
I,
a tangent. I was going to make a mistake, and I won't make that mistake. But I think that they want to get the lead guard thing solved with the number 8 pick if they go through with making it. I think it's very likely they trade down too, but I don't think they're going to make that pick at number 8 and have it be this is our solution to backup center. I don't think that. I think it's going to
Yeah,
be a guard.
I think that's reasonable. The only way it's not that is if they just think Mara's the best player, which they might. I mean, I do actually believe Onsi when he says best player available. Some GMs I kind of don't believe it, but I think he's a process-driven guy. I think he really does think the best player available is who I'm going to take. And if they think Mara's the best player, that's an if, obviously. Um, but quickly to your point about Mara and integration, that's a good example of like something that I think Hawks fans are already going to have to think about a little bit. There's a blessing and a curse. It's mostly a blessing that the Hawks are like way better than a usual team picking eighth in the draft. No matter who they draft at eight, that player, especially early in the season, is going to make them worse. So there is going to be this like push pull no matter what.
Yep.
And Mars is probably the most prime example of this because of stylistically what it would be. But even the guards, like even someone's like, I love Flemings. Like I love Flemings. It's a pretty safe bet in October. He probably isn't going to help you win basketball games,
Yep.
like compared to a normal veteran point guard. You know what I mean? And like, I'll be interested to see like what the reaction is to that because the Hawks try to win every game, and like 50 wins plus is like going to be their realistic goal this coming season. But then integrating a top 10 pick is not what usually that kind of team is doing. And I just look for is probably the wrong way to. I'll be interested to see how they kind of manage that because also Quinn tends to, as we've seen, default to I'm trying to win that night versus trying to develop players in game. Quinn's a big believer in development, not necessarily in games when you're trying to win, and that will be a push pull throughout the season, no matter what happens with this pick. But Mara is probably the example of that because I think Mara can play in the NBA reasonably soon. I'm not saying he can't play early in the year, but because it is such a big change from everything else, it would be really fascinating to see what they like how they handled it if they did draft him.
Yeah, and young bigs, they early in the rookie, they foul a lot. Like it's
Mhm.
a big adjustment. They're playing against much bigger, centers around the league, and so there is a developmental kind of timeline there for Mark. And then having CJ gives you a chance to, if you need to send Flemings down to College Park for 10 games or whatever it is to kind of get a feel for what they do offensively there. Then CJ gives you that opportunity to develop him as well. So it'd be interesting to see which way they go. Brad, I remember, I don't remember how long ago this was, but I remember watching Isaiah Hartenstein's first summer league. Like this had
Oh,
to be like 10 years ago, and he just got pushed around
oh yeah. I mean,
constantly, and it's incredible like what he's turned into, since that time. But that's what this this choice that the Hawks have to make. That's what a lot of what kind of comes for this is Mark's gonna have to get stronger. That's part of what has to
oh
happen
yeah.
for him. Now you look at how good Hartenstein is for that point, and that had to be like 10 years ago. I don't. I mean, I'm
And
guessing.
bigs take a while sometimes. Like,
Yeah, they do.
everyone knows, but bigs can take a while. And that's the funny about McCollum, and I'll get out of the way. But like having McCollum really does allow you, if you draft a lead guard, which Kevin thinks they're going to do, to
Yeah,
not have to start him. Like, in fact, they will not. I'm very confident they will not start that player in October.
Right.
Maybe by the end of the season they are because they're playing great or whatever. But like having CJ McCollum makes it so much easier to even go to that player and be like, hey guys, like hey Kingston, hey Keaton, hey Michael, like this guy's a 12-year veteran who's still really good, and you're going to back him up for a while. And that's an easy sell. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah,
also McCollum's just going to be better than those guys for a while, and that's okay.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with
But
that.
I mean, if you go back to
Yep.
Jaylen Brown's rookie season, he was coming off the bench. He was number what, three or four? I can't remember where he fell in that draft. I think third, maybe. But he
Yeah,
he
third.
played off the bench his whole rookie year. And now he eventually became an all-star, right, in that sense. But he went to a good Celtics team that there was not a starting position for him there. Next year, second season came around and things changed. In that sense, that might be a little bit of how it goes depending on who the Hawks pick at eight here.
Brad, is there any particular player that you covet at 23? I'm having flashbacks to like your disappointment when the Hawks picked Amari Spellman at 30.
Oh, that
Like
was
you
that was
you
the
had so many players in that you were like, oh, they could get him, they could get it. Oh, they took
I
Amari
like that
Spellman.
draft quite a bit, and I had Spellman in the 50s.
Okay.
That's probably the biggest disagreement I've ever had with a Hawks draft pick. Because I had him like it was literally like 25 spots lower. I was like, okay, well that's not ideal. And I was a younger, more impulsive man then. I had some stronger takes. I didn't know what I didn't know the way that I do now. No, I think 23 is so wide open. It really is.
Yeah,
And a lot of it depends on what they do at 8, obviously. Like they could take two of the same position. I won't say they won't do that, but if you draft Kingston Flemings at 8, I don't think you're going to take Christian Anderson at 23. I don't think you're going to take two small guards. Like,
yeah.
or if you take Mara at 8, I don't think they're going to turn around and draft, Taurus Reed at 23. So like that does kind of limit your options. I did a mock draft. I think like Dalen Swain would be an awesome outcome. I really like Dalen Swain as an upside bet at 23. Whatever guard falls, Bennett Sturts is really interesting to me. Abuka Okori is like my dream scenario at 23. I think he's a lottery talent that could fall that far. It's pretty wide open. I think there are probably literally a dozen guys that I would be totally fine with at 23. And that of course comes down to who's off the board when they pick and what they want and all these things. But it's and also they could I think 23 is like reasonably likely to be traded. I never project trades, but if they pick at 8, I think the chances of them trading 23 go up a little higher. I know they're willing to take both guys, and they should be, but between just trading it for the future or attaching it to somebody like Kispert or something to make a trade, like there are lots of scenarios. But I kind of like the value of 23. I think I have like a top 26, 27, and if they get one of those guys, like sign me up.
Is there anybody you're rooting for availability at 23, Glenn?
I'm gonna totally just see how it goes 1 through 22. I from like 12 to 22. I have no idea how that's gonna go. Like that,
Oh, same.
I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah,
like the
it's
first
open.
10, but yeah, it's gonna be totally dependent on like what happens 12 through 22 and who's on the board at 23. And to Brad's point, if they want to chase an expensive free agent in a week and a half or about 8 9 days from now,
Yeah.
do they want to get Kisper's money off the cap sheet? And will can they talk someone into saying, hey, Kisper and 23 for whatever, in that sense. And I'm not some Corey Kisper hater. I mean,
No,
I
it's
think
just
I think he doesn't I think he doesn't quite fit like what the Hawks are really trying to do on offense. In that sense, and then I know it was driving Kevin crazy in playoffs watching him close defensive possessions, and those sorts of things. I mean, it's hard to know what Ansi's aspirations are for free agency. I mean, he did great getting the kill last year. The Porzingis thing didn't really pan out, but he's able to move him for Kuminga, and we're going to see what happens with the Kuminga option. If he's part of it, you know, if he do they try to give 8 and Kuminga for Murphy? I don't know. Would that be a bad trade? I don't know. I think Trey Murphy's really good. But I think a lot of it is when they're on the clock is the guy they really like still there. And I think that's
that
really
is
is what is the whole everything's going to swing on how go 1 through 7 goes. And if the guy they want is there, or do they like nope, the guy we want is not here. Let's make a trade. It's gonna be really interesting to see how that goes.
that's one of the things about Onsi. Like Onsi, he didn't make any news today at
Yeah,
all, which is very Onsi. But I think he is being honest. Like they do a lot of mock scenarios. They're like very flexible in the draft. I think last year was like kind of a dream scenario where you got a crazy overpay by the Pelicans. But like short, I mean, I'm not saying that's gonna happen again, but like they're very willing to pivot. Like if the guys that they was not once not there anymore, or if somebody makes an offer that they think is an overpay, they will just do it. That happened with Vit Krejci in season, for example. They weren't trying to trade Vit Krejci. Somebody offered them more than they thought he was worth, and they did the trade. That's like honestly, it's very pragmatic that way. To where like that's why it's so hard to project them because it's like one trade offer and they'll just do it and move down or move out or whatever. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's really going to depend on what's available to them. And as much as he is best player available, when you get to 23, whatever you did at 8, I'm sorry, has an impact to some degree on what you do at
for
23.
sure,
I think it just
for
has
sure.
to.
Yeah,
Maybe this is wildly off topic given the number of things that are going to happen in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. But while I've got you here, Brad, what do you think is going to happen with Kaminga?
Ooh, truly a wild card. I feel like I was early on this and getting yelled at for it. I've always thought that like him being traded around the draft was very much possible. And like part of the calculus when they traded for him was like, hey, not that it didn't work out, it worked out fine. I think they like Kuminga. It's not about him not liking him, but that number is big enough. And when they made the trade, I heard multiple times behind the scenes, like part of the appeal was like the options, flexibility, optionality of Kaminga's contract situation with the option. I mean, you could pick it up, you could renegotiate it, you could trade him, or you could decline it if you had a bigger fish you want to go to, you can actually still decline it. So I think all four of those are still in play. I think the I'd be a little bit surprised if they decline the option now because of like McCollum being on the books, like the versatility of that, like the some of the upside, like big swings, like the Austin Reeves level $40 million swings are off the table now with McCollum on the books.
Right.
So like I think they probably want to just keep Kaminga if there's nothing else out there for him, just like honestly to flip it to they could trade him in season and he can still help you and all these things. But I think I would watch him being traded, but that's also he's in a group with Kispert, Ricochet, and Buddy Hield. All four of those guys could be traded in the next 3 days. Not all four of them at the same time, but like any of those four could be moved in whatever deal for whatever player coming back because they're all at different kind of levels and value propositions.
Yeah, I mean, I feel conflicted about Kaminga. I think that number for next year is bigger than it needs to be. I think they
Yeah.
need to find a lower number if he's willing to do that. But I mean, and he's playing with a bad knee last year. You know, he had to sit games now and then and stuff like that. But his athleticism is like, right up there with Jalen. It's
He
pretty
helps them.
close. Yeah. So that there, I mean, defensively he's smart. I know that sometimes the rotations were a little slow and things like that. He acclimated, but I mean, he has a lot of length, and a lot of athleticism, a lot of verticality, and a ton of speed in transition that really helps them a lot. And so if they want to do him and the eighth pick for Trey Murphy, you get one of the best 15 shooters. Trey Murphy can really shoot the basketball, and I think he's a sneaky good. I think people don't realize like how good of an athlete he is also. In that sense, so if they do, I'm not going to be upset if they do that to add another shooter. Um, there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I mean, their desire to turn over the other team's offense, um, and get out in transition, Kaminga helps him in that area.
All right. Well, I thank you both for joining me. More episodes to come this week. Exciting times for the Hawks. Exciting few weeks with Summer League around the corner too. And I'd like to thank you both and just say good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.